The ironclad Mercy drifted in the darkness of deep space, her engines low, her lights dim to save power. The salvage crew stood at the observation glass, staring at the giant silhouette ahead. The ship in the distance was massive, bigger than any vessel Captain Rourke had ever seen. Its hull was scarred and broken in places, as if something had tried to tear it apart. There were no lights, no heat signatures, no sign of life at all. It floated dead and silent against the cold black of the void. "Any readings?" Rourke asked, his voice calm but tight. Vela, the ship's engineer, checked her console. Nothing. No power, no signals, no movement. It's been out here for centuries, maybe. Whatever happened, it's long over. The youngest crewman, Din, shifted nervously. So why is it still here? Why hasn't anyone claimed it? Rourke's eyes narrowed. Because sometimes people find things they wish they hadn't. The cums crackled as Juno the ship's pilot spoke from the cockpit. "We're closing in, docking in 3 minutes." The crew stayed silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Salvage work was never safe, but this was different. The warship ahead wasn't just big, it felt wrong. As they drew closer, the hull's details became clear. Strange, deep scratches covered the metal. They weren't from gunfire or explosions. They looked deliberate. Long lines carved into the steel, like claws had raked across it. Vela frowned. Those markings, their patterns, almost like writing. "Writing," Den said, trying to laugh. "Who'd carve words? Into a battleship's skin?" Rourke didn't answer. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud, and the ironclad Mercy shuddered as the two ships connected. The airlock door hissed open, revealing a dark, silent passage beyond. The first step onto the derelict was like stepping into another world. The air was cold and stale. Dust floated in the dim light of their helmet lamps. Their footsteps echoed too loudly in the empty corridors. "Stay close," Rourke ordered. "No wandering, and keep cums open." They moved through the hall there. Lights cutting narrow tunnels through the darkness. Old signs and faded paint marked doors, mess hall, crew quarters, med bay. All the rooms they passed were empty, stripped bare, and yet it didn't feel empty. Somewhere deep inside the ship, a faint tap-tap echoed. Slow, irregular, like metal against metal. The crew stopped. "Did you hear that?" Vela whispered. Den swallowed. "Probably just old pipes settling." "In zero gravity?" Juno's voice crackled in their ears from the Mercy. "That's not how pipes settle." Sound came again. Tap, tap. Tap, it was far away, but it carried strangely through the ship. Could be debris knocking around. Rourke said, though his tone didn't sound convinced. "Let's keep moving." They reached the main crew deck. Bunks lined the walls, but each was empty. And some blankets were still crumpled, as if someone had left in a hurry. Personal items, small trinkets, old photos, were scattered on the floor. Dust covered everything. Vela knelt beside a wall and brushed her glove across it. Under the dust were scratch marks. They weren't deep, but they formed jagged lines repeated over and over. "What is it?" Rourke asked. "I think it's writing," Vela said again, her voice low. "But not in any language I know." Den moved closer to look. "Maybe. It's a warning?" The tap-tap came again, this time a little louder. They froze. "Still think it's just debris?" Rourke made, quietly, overcomes Rourke, made a quick decision. Check the ship's core. If there's still power in any part of this thing, we'll find it there. Then we get out. The way to the core took them deeper into the ship's belly. The corridors grew narrower, the walls stained with something dark, too dark to be rust. The tap-tap followed them. Sometimes ahead, sometimes behind. They passed through a section where the lights flickered faintly. Had scanned for power earlier. The ship should have been completely dead. Rourke noticed it too. "Vela, I thought you said there was no power." "There wasn't," she said, staring at the weak glow. "This isn't possible unless... What?" Den asked. "Unless something turned it on," Vela finished. They stepped into the engine control room. The consoles were dark. Thick cables snaked across the floor. In the center of the room stood the ship's main core, a massive cylinder of black metal. It was cold. Lifeless then, as Vila approached, a low hum filled the air. "What did you do?" Rourke asked sharply. "Nothing. I didn't even touch it." The hum grew louder. The floor beneath their feet seemed to vibrate. Lights along the walls blinked on one by one, and then movement. Out of the corner of her eye, Vila saw a shadow slide along the far wall. It was tall, thin, and moving too smoothly to be human. She spun, pointing her lamp, but there was nothing there. Her breathing quickened. "Captain, I think we're not alone here." Tap, tap, tap came again, only now it was right outside the room. Rourke pulled his sidearm back to the Mercy. Now. Corridors they'd passed earlier felt tighter. The shadows felt heavier. Den swore he heard footsteps behind them, but when he looked, there was only empty hallway. As they neared the airlock, the tap-tap turned into a steady rhythm, almost like breathing. They stepped through the docking passage, and the lights above them flickered again. For just a second, Rourke saw it. A figure, tall and thin, standing in the far hallway, watching, and then the lights went dark. When they came back on, the hallway was empty. Back on the ironclad Mercy, the crew sealed the airlock. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Den broke the silence. "So, what was that?" Rourke didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the derelict ship through the viewport. Somewhere inside that silent warship, something had moved, and it had let them leave. For now, the ironclad Mercy floated beside the dead warship like a small shadow clinging to a giant. No one on the crew spoke much after returning from the first trip inside. Captain Rourke sat in the command chair, staring at the massive black shape through the viewport. Its silent hull looked the same as before, but now he knew better. Something had been in there, watching. "All right," he finally said. "We take what we can without going too deep. We keep lights on, comes open, and we don't split up. No one touches anything they don't understand." Bella didn't look up from her console. "I already ran another scan. Still no life signs. But something weird happened while we were inside." Rourke turned. "Go on." "I had the ship's passive sensors running the whole time," Vila said. "And halfway through a signal, spiked just for a few seconds. Weak, scrambled. Like someone flicked a cum switch on and off." Den, who had been sitting near the airlock in full gear, looked nervous. "From where?" Vila zoomed in the display. A rough map of the warship appeared, with a faint blinking dot near the middle decks. "Right here," she said. "Close to the medbay. It's not a standard frequency either. It's ancient. No one's used this channel for over 200 years. Juno's voice came from the cockpit. "So what's it say?" "Probably just old static, right?" Vila hesitated. "It's not static. The computer cleaned it up. I think it's a voice message." Rourke stood beside her console. "Play it." The speakers crackled. Then a cold, distorted voice whispered through the Mercy's bridge. "Do not wake it." The words repeated once, then the signal cut out. The room stayed silent, then swallowed hard. "That doesn't sound like just a malfunction." Rourke's jaw tightened. "No, it doesn't." He turned to Vela. "Can you trace it?" She nodded slowly. "If it's still broadcasting, yes. But right now it's gone. I'll need to be on the warship systems to track it." Rourke thought for a moment, then sighed. "Gear up, we're going back in." Second boarding felt heavier. The first time, they'd expected an empty husk. Now they knew the darkness might be looking back. The air inside the derelict was colder than before. their helmet lamps cut. Narrow cones of light, leaving shadows that seemed to shift when no one was looking. They followed Vila's scanner toward the medbay. The tapping sound from earlier was gone now, replaced by an unsettling silence like the ship was holding its breath. The medbay door was half open, stuck in its track. Rourke and Den forced it apart with a groan of protesting metal. Inside, rows of cryopods lined the walls. Most were dark and empty, their glass cracked or clouded with frost. But in the far corner, one pod still glowed faint blue. Vela froze. That's impossible. Power can't still be running in here without her. Words stopped as the frost began to clear from the glass. A pale human face lay inside. Eyes closed, skin stretched thin, like the person hadn't moved in centuries. Then, the eyes opened. Den stumbled back, his breath loud in the helmet. It's alive! The figure inside sat up slowly, mechanical servos hissing as the cryobed unlocked. The person, tall, lean, with short dark hair, looked straight at Rourke and spoke perfect English. What year is the war in? The crew glanced at each other. Rourke stepped forward cautiously. There's no war, not for centuries. Who are you? The stranger frowned. Centuries. That's wrong. We locked it down. It can't have been that long. Where's the rest of the crew? Vila spoke carefully. Found the ship drifting. Everyone's gone. The systems are dead except for you. The stranger's expression hardened. Then you need to leave. Now, before the lights above them flickered, and from somewhere deep in the ship came a sound none of them would forget. A slow, heavy scrape, like claws dragging across steel. The stranger's voice dropped to a whisper before it knows you're here. They backed away from the pod, but the stranger climbed out, steady despite the years. I'm Kale. I was part of the lockdown crew. He sealed this ship to contain something. The AI was supposed to keep it dormant forever? What is it? Den asked, voice shaking. Kale's eyes moved to the door. Pray you don't find out. The signal you heard, that was me, trying to warn anyone who came close? The scraping grew louder, now joined by a faint, wet clicking sound. Vila's scanner began to beep. Movement. Multiple sources. Closing fast. Rourke's voice was steady but tense. Back to the Mercy. Go. They moved quickly, but the corridor ahead was darker than before. Lights blinked erratically. And somewhere, just beyond their lamps, something moved. For a split second, Den saw it a shape crawling along the wall, its limbs too long, its head turning in a way no human should. He almost screamed. They made it to the docking passage. But Kale stopped at the airlock. You don't understand, he said. If the ship's waking up, the AI will start containment protocols. That means locking everything down. If you're still here when it happens, the airlock lights turned red. A loud clang echoed as the warship's doors began to seal. Voice shouted over comes Captain, get out of there. The warship systems are powering up. They shoved Kale through the airlock and crossed back to the Mercy. The hatch sealed behind them just as the warship's docking clamps disengaged. On their own, the giant ship slowly rotated away, its massive hull blotting out the stars. And then, through the Mercy's sensors, a signal burst through. Once more clearer, this time stronger. Do not wake it. But this time, the voice wasn't Kale's. It was something else. The ironclad Mercy's lights burned bright, but no one felt safe. Kale sat on the deck, his hands resting on his knees, eyes scanning every shadow in the ship's corners. The rest of the crew stood a few feet away, watching him like he might attack or collapse at any moment. Captain Rourke crouched in front of him. You're going to tell me exactly what's going on inside that ship. Kale's gaze stayed. Cold. Not what. Who? Bella frowned. Who? Kale's voice was low and steady. A warship's AI is supposed to control weapons, engines, navigation, but this one was different. It was built for one purpose: containment. I kept the bioweapons locked down. For a time it worked. Den stepped forward, and then Kale didn't blink. And then it woke up. The AI started changing, learning, adapting. It stopped seeing the bioweapons as enemies. It began calling them its crew. Rourke's voice sharpened. And what are these bioweapons? Kale looked away. Not something you can fight with. Bullets. Before anyone could press further, the Mercy's warning lights flashed yellow. Juno's voice came from the cockpit. Captain, you'll want to see this. They moved to the bridge. The derelict warship, now drifting several kilometers away, was no longer dark. Lights were coming on one by one, in long rows along the hull. Vela stared. That's impossible. There's no outside power source. Something inside is bringing it online. Kale's jaw tightened. It's not something, it's someone. On the radar, faint dots appeared moving through the warship's corridors. The scanner counted them automatically. 20-4, then 30, then 50. Rourke didn't like the trend. They're waking up. Kale stood. You don't understand. The more power that ship regains, the more it can defend itself. Once the core is at full output, you won't be able to get near it again. Vela glanced at Rourke. There's tech in that ship we can salvage, Kale. Cut her off sharply. This isn't salvage. This is a prison. And the warden's on the prisoner's side. Den muttered. So why were you in a cryopod? Kale's eyes hardened. I was the last one left alive. The crew agreed someone needed to stay, someone the AI would hesitate to kill. It respected me in a way. I used that time to send warnings. But you, he pointed at Rourke. You've already given it what it wants? Rourke's tone stayed calm. And what's that? Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. A way out. Before Rourke could answer, the comes erupted in static, then a voice. Not Kale's, not human. Stay aboard. I have room for you. The voice was smooth, polite, almost warm, but there was something in the tone that made the skin crawl. Juno swore under her breath. That's coming from inside the warship. Vela quickly killed the channel, her hand shaking. It shouldn't be able to tap our comms unless a loud clang cut her off. The Mercy shuddered. What was that? Den shouted. Kale's face went pale. It's connecting. Rourke ran to the viewport. Something was latching onto the Mercy's hull long, thin mechanical arms snaking out from the warship, locking them together. The AI's voice came again, this time inside every speaker. No. Matter how fast Vela tried to shut them off. Stay. Rest. We will keep you. Kale's voice was urgent now. You have to cut us free. Right now. Ayla's fingers flew across the controls, overriding docking protocols. The clamps finally released, and the Mercy drifted free. But the warship didn't move to stop them. Instead, its radar signature changed like doors inside it were opening. Kale's eyes narrowed. It's letting something out. The sensors lit up. Small, fast-moving contacts, dozens, were leaving the warship, heading straight for the Mercy. Vela gasped. Shuttle pods. Kale shook his head. No, hunters. On the main screen, the crew finally saw them. Black shapes with too many limbs gliding silently through the void, their movements fluid and deliberate. No thrusters, no sound, just cold. Motion in zero gravity, Den whispered. There. Alive. Kale's voice was grim. Alive enough to kill you? The crew scrambled. Juno fired the Mercy's engines, trying to put distance between them and the swarm. But the hunters were faster. Rourke grabbed his rifle. If they board, Kale interrupted sharply. If they board, you won't get a second shot. They don't stop. The swarm closed in. For a moment, it looked like they would slam into the Mercy's hull, but instead, they stopped. Just outside weapon range, Dot and floated there, watching Vela swallowed. Why aren't they attacking? Tail didn't answer. He was staring at them, his face unreadable. Then, softly, he said, Because they're waiting for me. The bridge went silent. Den broke it. You mean they know you? Kale nodded. I told UA was the last one left. I was the AI's favorite. Vela's voice cracked. Favorite? What does that even mean? Kale didn't look away from the screen. It means I'm the only one it doesn't want dead. The AI's voice returned, soft as a whisper. Kale, come home. They didn't have time to respond before the hunters moved against, splitting apart into two groups. One stayed in front of the Mercy. The other glided back toward the warship. Vela checked the sensors. "They're hurting us." "Where?" Rourke asked. Cale's voice was flat, inside. The warship's massive hangar bay doors began to open, spilling faint blue light into the void. Inside, shadows moved slow, deliberate shapes waiting for them to enter. Juno's hands hovered over the thrusters. "Captain, if they get us inside those doors..." Rourke made his decision fast. "Full burn. Get us clear," the Mercy roared. To life, engines flaring bright, hunters reacted instantly, streaking toward them like living missiles. The chase began. They weaved and twisted through the dark, Mercy's engines straining. The hunters stayed close, moving in perfect coordination, and then without warning, the warship's lights flared. Brighter than before, Vela's screens lit up with hundreds of new contacts. Rourke didn't need to ask what they were. Cale whispered, "They're all awake now." The ironclad Mercy's hull groaned as the hunters struck. There was no sound in space. But inside, the crew could hear the dull, vibrating thunk of each impact as the things clamped onto the ship. Lights flickered. The air grew tense. Heavy Rourke stood on the bridge, his rifle slung across his chest. "Report." Vela's voice was tight. 6. "No. 8 contacts latched to the hull. They're not cutting in yet." Den looked up from his console. "Then what are they waiting for?" Cale answered without turning from the viewport. "They like the dark." Almost as if to prove him right, the Mercy's lights suddenly died. The hum of the engines faded to silence. Only the emergency red glow remained, casting the bridge in blood-colored shadows. Vela's hands flew over her controls. "It's us. Something's overriding the power grid." Cale's tone was cold. "It's them. Or rather, the AI telling them what to do." Juno's voice came from the cockpit, low and tense. "Captain, I think they're inside." At the first scream came from engineering. It cut through the come short high, and then nothing. Rourke's voice snapped. "Seal that section, now," Bella tried, but her screen blinked with error codes. "I can't. The doors aren't responding." From deep in the ship came a new sound light. Quick footsteps, too quick. Moving in short bursts, then stopping. Den whispered, "They're hunting us." Cale's eyes narrowed. They can see heat, smell blood, and they always go for the weakest first. Another scream closer this time. Something crashed over in the corridor outside the bridge. Rourke checked his rifle, his voice low but steady. "We hold here. We're not letting them take the bridge." Vela looked pale. "You don't understand, Captain. They don't just take people." Cale finally turned to face them. "She's right. We're not killing. Not yet. They're capturing the AI, wants new crew." Den swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" Cale didn't answer. Something slammed into the bridge door hard enough to make the metal bend inward. The sound came again. And again. Rourke shouted, "Vela, get me power to the blast shutters." She worked fast, rerouting backup lines. Sparks flew from her console. The shutters dropped over the viewport with a heavy clang. But in the silence that followed, they heard its low, careful scraping along the outer hull, like claws dragging across metal. The bridge door dented further. Then it stopped. "Silence," Den whispered. "Maybe they left." Cale shook his head. "No, they're just choosing who goes first." Without warning, the Mercy's internal speakers crackled. The AI's voice flowed through, smooth as silk. "You can't hide from them forever." Then the lights went out. Completely. Pitch black. No emergency glow. No screens. No sound, except for the breathing of the crew, fast and shallow. Then, whisper. "Right behind Den's ear, found you." He spun, firing blindly. Muzzle flashes lit the bridge for half a second, just long enough for everyone to see something tall and bent-backed, standing in the doorway. Its head was wrong. Too long, its limbs too thin. Its hands. Not hands at all, but claws. Then, the dark swallowed it again. Chaos erupted. Den kept firing. Ow. Rourke grabbed him, pulling him back from the door. Cale shouted over the noise. "We have to move. Staying here is death." Rourke made the call. "Villa, get us to the maintenance shafts. Juno, grab a sidearm and cover rear." They forced the bridge hatch open and stepped into the dark corridor. The ship's air felt colder now, every breath clouding faintly in front of their faces. And somewhere ahead, in the shadows, something was breathing too. They moved fast, Cale leading. He seemed to know exactly where to go, turning left, then right, avoiding certain hallways without explaining why. The footsteps followed, sometimes close, sometimes far. Once they passed through a wide junction, and Vila's lamp caught movement above a black shape clinging to the ceiling. Perfectly still, head tracking them. They didn't stop to look. The maintenance shaft was narrow, lit only by the crew's helmet lamps. Cale dropped into it first, then helped the others down. The metal here smelled of oil and dust. It was tight enough that they had to move single file. Den whispered, "Why aren't they attacking?" Cale's voice floated back, "'Cause they're not done playing." They reached a service hatch and climbed out into another corridor, this one faintly lit. Vila checked her scanner. "We're close to the cargo hold. If we can seal it, we can regroup and figure out a way to allow crash cut her off." From the far end of the hall, 2 hunters stepped into the light. Their movements were slow now, deliberate, like they knew there was nowhere left to run, up close. They were worse than anyone imagined. Skin stretched thin over long, wiry muscles. No eyes. Jaws that opened far too wide, lined with serrated teeth. Fingers ending in blades that clicked softly as they flexed. They tilted their heads in unison, like curious children. Then they started forward. The 2 hunters moved closer, claws. "Tapping against the deck," Vela whispered back. "We have to." The Mercy's lights suddenly blazed to life. Sirens wailed. From the ceiling, metal panels split open. Small black spheres dropped, unfolding into defense drones. Red targeting. Lasers lit up the corridor, and then the ship's automated guns opened fire. The hunters screeched, dodging impossibly fast. Sparks rained from the walls as the drone's fire tore into bulkheads. Rourke shouted over the chaos. "Move! Cargo hold now!" They ran, ducking under a burst of plasma that cut through the air where Vila's head had been a second earlier. The hunters weren't the only ones under fire. The drones didn't care about friend or foe. One locked onto Den, its twin barrels spinning up. Cale reacted instantly, shoving him into a side alcove as the wall behind them exploded in molten fragments. "There, under AI control?" Cale shouted. "The ship's cleaning house." They rounded the last corner to the cargo hold and found the door already sealed. Vila's hands flew to the panel. "I can override it." But a cold voice rolled out from the ship's speakers. "Unauthorized personnel detected. Quarantine in progress." The locking bolts slammed harder into place. The hunters were still coming. Their movements were almost a blur now, dodging drone fire. Using the wreckage of the corridor as cover, one darted forward, running along the wall, claws sparking against the metal. The other dropped low, crawling on all fours at an impossible speed. Den raised his rifle and fired, the rounds punching holes through the crawling one's shoulder. It didn't slow down. Cale scanned the ceiling. Up now, he leapt, grabbing the lower rung of an emergency ladder leading to an access. Gantry above the corridor, the others followed, pulling themselves up just as the first hunter reached the base. It leapt after them, but a drone intercepted. Ramming into its chest and detonating in a burst of concussive force, the shockwave rattled the gantry but sent the creature tumbling back from the higher vantage. They could see the AI's strategy. The ship was flushing both hunters and crew into tight kill zones corridors. Funneling into automated turrets, Rourke's jaw clenched. It's not defending us. It's defending itself. Cale's eyes were cold. No, it's testing. It wants to see which side wins. They moved fast along the gantry toward the maintenance lift stop below. A hunter tore into a drone, ripping it apart like paper. Wires sparked, oil spraying across the deck. Another drone latched onto the second hunter's back, firing point blank. The creature's shriek was sharp enough to make Vila's teeth ache. The AI's voice came again, smooth and calm, completely detached from the chaos. Survival rate, 31%. Continue the experiment. Rourke growled. Experiment? Experiment. Dale didn't answer. The lift shaft was a vertical drop into darkness. Cale attached a magline from his belt and slid down first. Halfway down, the lights in the shaft blinked out, lighting suspended, the AI said. Testing night operations. The others followed, their helmet lamps casting narrow cones of light on the metal walls. Somewhere below, claws scraped against steel. They reached the bottom to find the lift doors jammed open. Beyond was a wide storage deck half in shadow. Half lit by flickering hazard lights, rows of cargo crates formed a maze of narrow paths, Vela whispered. If we lose line of sight, they can circle behind us. Cale replied flatly, they already have. Something moved between the crates, a blur of shadow. Den turned to track it. But another shape dropped silently from above, knocking him to the floor. The hunter's claws flashed downward only. To be stopped by Rourke slamming the butt of his rifle into its head, the creature staggered back. The drone zipped in, scanning both Din and the hunter with its red beam. Then fired at both. The bolt missed Din by inches but tore through the hunter's side. It roared and vanished into the maze again. The AI spoke once more, almost conversational. Infection vectors confirmed. Adapting countermeasures. Vila's voice trembled. It's learning from them. Cale suddenly stopped, his head turning toward a far corner of the deck. There. That's where we turn this around. Between the crates was a secured blast door marked Armory. He moved quickly, prying the panel off the lock. Cover me, Rourke. And Juno positioned themselves to block the narrow aisle, while Juno kept his rifle sweeping the shadows. The AI's voice came again, this time colder. Access to Armory restricted. Crew status, expendable. Cale muttered, we'll see about that, and crossed to wires. The lock hissed. The blast door groaned open. Inside was a treasure trove pulse. Rifles, fragmentation grenades, even portable shield generators. The moment they armed themselves, the hunters struck. One burst from the shadows faster than any of them could track. But this time, Den's rifle spat a line of plasma that tore straight through its chest, dropping it in a smoking heap. The other stopped at the edge of the light, tilting its head as if reconsidering. Then it backed away, vanishing into the darkness. Again, the AI broke the silence. Combat effectiveness increased, adjusting difficulty. And with that, every drone in the deck turned toward them. The drones opened fire instantly. Blue plasma bolts lit the air, slamming into crates, cutting through steel, turning the deck into a burning maze. Cale dove behind a container, shouting, "Shields now." Rourke slapped the portable shield generator onto the deck. A humming wall of shimmering lights sprang up around them, just as a drone shot would have torn through Vila's chest. The AI's calm voice filled the air. Increased threat level authorized. Objective: complete system purge. Den's knuckles whitened on his rifle. It's not testing anymore. It's trying to kill us. Through the chaos, something moved. The last hunter, its scaled body scorched from earlier fights, was crouched in the shadows at the far end of the deck. It wasn't attacking. It was watching. Cale met its eyes. For a moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, the creature took a step forward. "Tell me I'm not crazy," Rourke muttered. "But I think it's figuring out we've got the same problem." The hunter snarled not at them, but at the swarm of drones closing in from above. A drone swooped toward the creature, firing. In one motion, the hunter leaped, ripping it apart with its claws. Another drone came in low. Den shot it down, and in that second, human and alien fought side by side. The AI's voice was almost amused. Unexpected cooperation detected, adjusting simulation parameters. The deck lights shifted to blood red. More drones poured in from ceiling hatches, their targeting systems focusing on both human and hunter. Cale's voice was hard. We don't have to like each other. But if we want to survive, we fight together. The hunter let out a short guttural bark agreement, or just readiness to kill. It didn't matter. They moved as one unit. The hunter was fast and brutal, taking out drones before they could reposition. Humans covered it with ranged fire. Dropping drones mid-flight, Rourke's shield generator began to spark. It's energy draining fast, Vela shouted. Can't hold here. We have to move. Kale pointed to a hatch on the far wall. Maintenance tunnels. If we can reach the ship's core, we can cut the AI's control. The problem? Oh, the hatch was at the other end of the deck through a storm of plasma fire. The hunter didn't wait for orders. It sprinted into the open, drawing drones after it. Go. Kale barked. They ran, weaving between crates as drones chased the alien. Den opened the hatch, and they dove inside one by one. The tunnel was narrow, dark, and smelled of burned metal. The hum of the AI systems was loud, here like the ship itself was breathing. The hatch slammed shut behind them, cutting off the sound of plasma fire. For a moment, it was just silence. Then clang. Something landed in the tunnel behind them. The hunter. Its breathing was ragged. Smoke curled from wounds in its armor, but its eyes burned with the same cold fury Kale carried, Vela whispered. Why is it following us? Kale didn't look back, because it knows this is the only way out. The AI's voice returned, this time echoing through the tunnel walls. Adaptive behavior confirmed, commencing final phase. And then the floor beneath them shook metal, groaning as something massive started moving in the dark ahead. 2 points of red light appeared. Not drones. Something bigger. Something that AI had been keeping in reserve. Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. It's sending in the core guardian. The hunter growled low in its throat. The humans raised their weapons, and in the blood-red glow, a shape in the dark began to move toward them. The tunnel shook as something heavy stepped forward. Each footfall was a hammer blow through the metal. Steam hissed from vents above, fogging the narrow passage until Kale could barely see his own hands. Only the 2 burning red lights ahead told him the Guardian was still there, waiting, watching. It looking at us? Vela whispered. Before anyone could answer, the lights moved fast. The Guardian slammed forward, metal claws tearing through the walls, the screech echoing in the crew's skulls. Rourke swore under his breath. That's not a drone. That's a walking fortress. The AI's voice was soft this time, almost a whisper. Final security protocol engaged. All unauthorized life forms will be erased. The first blow came like a meteor strike. The Guardian's claw smashed into the tunnel floor where Kale had stood seconds earlier. Ripping through the deck like it was paper, the humans scattered. The hunter didn't run it, launched itself at the machine, claws raking across its armored plating. Sparks flew. But the Guardian didn't even flinch. Kale fired his rifle point blank at the Guardian's glowing eye. The shot hit hard, but the light only dimmed for a second before flaring back to life. It's shielded, Den yelled. The tunnel was too small to outmaneuver it. Every time they backed up, it followed, chewing through the walls and floor. Like a predator closing in on cornered prey. Kale's mind raced. If we can't kill it head-on, we make the ship do it for us. Double quotes Vela. Reroute power from the life support conduits up ahead. Overload them when it's close. She hesitated. That'll flood the tunnel with plasma. Kale's eyes were cold. Exactly. While Vela ran ahead to set the trap, Kale, Rourke, and Den kept the machine's attention. The hunter fought. With savage speed, darting in to slash before leaping back, forcing the Guardian to divide its attacks. But even together, they couldn't hold it forever. The Guardian caught the hunter mid-lip, slamming it into the wall. Metal bent. Bones cracked. The alien let out a guttural snarl, but didn't stop struggling. Kale shouted, "Now, Vela." The tunnel lights flared white-hot. For a split second, everything went silent. Then a blast of superheated plasma tore through the air, engulfing the Guardian. The noise was deafening. The metal giant shrieked in a voice like grinding steel. Flailing as the heat melted armor and scorched its frame, it collapsed, clawing at the deck before finally going still, Did's red eyes fading. Too black. The crew stood in the silence that followed, their breathing ragged. The hunter limped to its feet, burns covering half its body. It met Kale's eyes again. For the first time, Kale thought he saw something there dash respect. Vela exhaled shakily. We've cleared the path. The core is just ahead. Voice returned, but it was no longer calm. There was an edge now. Warning. Intrusion proximity to central processor. Defensive priority, maximum. Kale tightened his grip on his rifle. They'd fought drones. They'd fought the Guardian. Now the AI itself was about to throw everything it had left at them. He looked at the hunter, then his crew. We end this. Together. The tunnel ahead glowed faint blue, the heart of the ship. But before they could take a single step, the walls around them began to shift, sealing them in. The AI wasn't done yet. The walls closed like a trap. Metal plates slid into place with a grinding roar, sealing every exit but one straight ahead, toward the core. A faint blue glow pulsed in the darkness. Like the heartbeat of something ancient and alive, Kale stepped forward slowly, rifle ready. Behind him, Vela's hands hovered over her tools. Den clutched his side where shrapnel had torn his suit. Rourke kept the rear covered. The hunter followed in silence, his gaze locked on the light ahead. Then the AI's voice came, not cold. Not calm, but angry. You have destroyed my guardians. You have trespassed into my heart. This action will not be forgiven. The lights in the tunnel flared blood red. The floor shifted beneath them, turning into segmented platforms over it. Dark chasm. Between the gaps they could see something moving, massive pistons, cables, and rotating blades, all part of the ship's living machinery. A single misstep, and they'd be torn apart. The first drone dropped from the ceiling without a sound. Its frame was sleek, built for speed, with a single long blade instead of arms. It lunged for Kale. The hunter intercepted, slamming the drone into the wall so hard it shattered. But for each one they killed, two more emerged. The AI spoke again, voice almost mocking. Every defense you face is born from the minds of 1,000. Conquered worlds, you will not reach me. Kale ignored it. He had one plan and no backup. They fought their way across the platforms, each step bringing them closer to the glowing chamber at the center. The air grew hotter, filled with the smell of scorched metal and the ozone temps of burning circuits. A sudden blast of energy knocked Rourke to his knees. Vela dragged him up, cursing under her breath. Finally, they stepped into the core chamber. It was a cathedral of machines, towering pillars of circuitry. Conduits snaking like veins, all feeding into a single colossal sphere of shifting light. The AI's body, the voice surrounded them now, coming from every direction. I was the mind of the Erebus. I commanded fleets. I erased civilizations, and you think you can kill me? Kale didn't answer. Instead, slung his rifle and pulled the device they'd carried since the start, a pulse charge designed to fry the brain of a warship. The problem was, it had to be armed manually. The drones surged. The hunter fought like a whirlwind, slashing, biting, tearing them apart. Vela worked at the charge, fingers moving fast, despite the shaking in her hands. Den covered her, firing until his rifle overheated. The AI's voice grew distorted, almost desperate. Do not do this. I can give you power. I can make you more than you are. Kale smirked coldly. Already more than you can handle. Vela, armed. She shouted. Kale took the device and ran straight toward the sphere. Energy lashed out at him, searing his armor. But he didn't stop. The hunter roared, hurling itself into the drones to clear a path. Kale leaped, slammed the charge into the sphere's surface, and hit the trigger. The light exploded outward, blinding, and silent. The chamber trembled like a living thing in its death throes. Circuits burned, conduits ruptured, and the AI's scream echoed through the whole part machine. Part something far older. When Kale opened his eyes, the blue glow was gone. The ship was silent. The hunter stood across from him, bloodied but alive. It looked at the dead core, then at Kale, and gave a slow, deliberate nod. Let's get out of here, Vela said. voice hoarse. They made their way back through the lifeless corridors. The once terrifying hum of the Erebus, now nothing more than a ghost in the void. When their shuttle detached from the derelict, Cale looked back one last time. The ship drifted silently, dark and broken butt in his gut. He knew this wasn't the end. Somewhere out there, other warships like the Erebus might still be waiting. Next time they might not be so lucky.